review the project, where if I have a talk with them, I'm like, okay, these guys are really going to succeed. I think we should align heavily.
Sup everyone, James here from Supra. Welcome to another edition of the Super dApp Builders series. Now, of course, the Super dApp Builders series is all about our ecosystem. Who's building on the Supra L1? Who is making the Supra ecosystem as exciting and dynamic as it is? And with that in mind, we wanted to bring in some of our team to talk about what we're building, what our roadmap is, what the future looks like. And so very excited to have with me Teagan Buckley. He is the ecosystem lead on our team. Teagan, thanks for being the first Supra guest on the Super dApp Builders series. Welcome to the show, man.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. Excited to chat all things Web3 and all things Supra, of course. Excuse my Mo to those of you that are watching, whether you're watching later on after Movember, whether it's December, January 2025 and beyond. This is currently the middle of Movember, and we at Supra wanted to get on the Movember train, especially because we're all about good causes. It's a fun vibe as well. And of course, we're launching with MoveVM first, so it kind of makes sense, Movember. So hope you guys don't mind a little bit of my attempt at a tash. Teagan, I see that you didn't participate in Movember. Is there a reason for that?
Unfortunately, I don't have the genetics to grow one. That's the main reason,
Well,
yeah.
I kind of go with the same excuse, but as you can see, it's a weak attempt. I'm doing my best. So
I'm gonna look homeless if I
Teagan,
try.
man,
There'll be like 3 hairs.
it's really great to have you on. Let's start with your background in Web3. When did you first get into this really dynamic industry? It is a Wild West industry still. When did you first get into Web3?
Definitely. So I first got in right around the COVID crash of 2020. So my experience was that I was playing a game called CSGO. If you're familiar with that, there are skins in the game which have real world value. And so I got pretty lucky. I rolled a loot box, got this $300 to $400 knife that was worth at the time. And the only way back in 2020 to cash out was through these very sketchy backroom deals. And the way the money was transacted was through this payment method I've never heard of, Bitcoin, and having to set up this Bitcoin wallet address. No idea what that was, but I was like, hey, this is the only possible method for me to get some real world value out of my CS:GO skin. So I went ahead and did that and forgot about it until more towards the later half of 2020. And this was right when COVID crashed. Bitcoin was at 3,000 to 4,000. And then I think it did like a 5-6x by the time I checked back in on that wallet. And so now all of a sudden I had a few $1,000s to my name, and I was like, okay, well, what is this? I better figure it out. What is Bitcoin? And dove down that rabbit hole. And then my first actual like exposure to the altcoin rabbit hole was I started my own like startup project in university. I was in University of Washington at the time, and with some friends we created basically a platform to tokenize your in-game accounts. So very correlated with my first exposure. Wanted to be able to tie my like Counter-Strike or Steam account to an NFT, trade that peer-to-peer on a more secure platform. And that's kind of how I got involved in the space in general.
Wow, so that's still pretty newish for someone who has so much experience already. I mean, you and I work behind the scenes, we're often interacting with each other, and your knowledge is pretty impressive. Did you have a programming background or an engineering background to understand the core concepts of the technology?
Yeah, I studied mechanical engineering in university, but where I would say I really like got my technical background for understanding the tech in the space and be able to actually like converse with developers in my current role as ecosystem lead at Supra is both through starting that project, diving into the Solana ecosystem SDKs, figuring out how do I tie like create an NFT in the first place even, and all those steps. But then what really kind of fast tracked my learnings in the space was through my first official job in Web3, which is BD at Gelato, which is now like a roll up as a service provider. There, I studied under like Patrick. Started off as an intern, and it was like his wealth of knowledge. It was very much like a middleware infrastructure at the time. We hadn't expanded to roll ups as a service, so I had to understand the backends of pretty much every different type of DeFi like primitives, such as perps, lending markets, what their backend looks like, how they function, in order to pitch them decentralized cloud services of sorts where they can run their liquidation, price keeper bots, etc. So I had to my target audience during that BD phase was exclusively developers because we were solving developer pain points, and so I had to really nail down and understand that, and that's kind of how I was able to take that learnings into the current role and our interactions here at Supra.
Yeah, it's amazing how engineers pick up on the technology real quick. I know a lot of people, even here in South Africa. In fact, my background into Web3 started out with a former engineering company, electronic engineering, and they had moved into Web3 development, and they were the ones that sort of incubated my entrance into the industry. So it's amazing how engineers really do have a knack for the tech, and it's pretty exciting. Now, just a quick deviation from the tech, I want to talk about where you're based. You went to University of Washington, and I met you in person for the first time in Seoul, Korea, and my understanding is you're actually based in Southeast Asia. What was the reason for the move?
Yeah, so like ethnically, I'm half Taiwanese, half American. So I do speak like Mandarin fluently, although it can be improved. And so I'm based out of Taiwan. I'm based out of Taipei. And the reason for the move, honestly, I very much like the pace of life here in Taiwan. I spent 4 years of like middle school slash junior high in Taipei, and always wanted to move back. After graduating university, my plan was originally I want to either move back to Taiwan or go somewhere else like Europe, just to explore and live like in a new environment. And that stemmed from the fact that growing up, I've actually moved over probably 8 times in the span of 20 years, all like not just different places within the US, but different countries entirely. Um, so taught me to adapt very fast, taught me to get used to new environments, throw myself into the fire. That's also how I learned. It's how I picked up Web3. And I just see moving back as also like another challenge and learning experience for me.
So a true Web3 nomad.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to let you go without saying something in Mandarin. So I'm going to throw you a curveball right now. I'm going to throw you under the bus. I want you to say something like Supra is the best L1 to build your dApp. If you can say that in Mandarin, that would be phenomenal. And we're going to clip that and put that on X.
Oh no, my technical. Okay, you're throwing me under the bus here. 好，Supra 是区块链里面最厉害，
Wow.
可以让你 build your dApp.
That was amazing. You just flowed straight into it, man.
That's
I was like, he's going to warm up here. You just went straight in.
You stumped me. I don't know how to say build your dApp.
Well, it sounded perfect. It sounded perfect. So what exactly did you say?
Only the first part. It says Supra and then 是区块链 is blockchain. 里面 is like in the blockchain space. 最厉害, like the best, or the strongest. And then 链 is chain. Two, and I didn't say the rest.
No, that was more than enough. That was incredible. Have you ever given talks in Mandarin about Supra or the tech?
No, so my Chinese is very conversational. The Web3 lingo is something I need to pick up on and get used to. So I've tried to do some like customer calls in Mandarin, and it just ends up being me in like broken Chinglish saying dApp and blockchain and layer one weaving into my sentences. Yeah.
Sup everyone, James here from Supra, and I want to remind you real quick about the Super dApp Showdown. If you're looking to deploy a dApp on Supra's L1, you should enter the Super dApp Showdown because you could win yourself a slice of the $100 million ecosystem fund. In addition, you could get exposure to over 500,000 verified KYC users in our ecosystem, and in addition to that, you could appear on the Killer Whales TV show. That's the TV show where you present your dApp to VCs in the Web3 ecosystem, and that gets streamed on TV to over 600 million homes around the world on leading streaming services. All you got to do is head on over to supra.com/showdown, enter your details. We'd love to feature you, and we'd love to check you out in season 1 of the Super dApp Showdown. So head on over to that website and enter as soon as you can.
Okay, so let's dive into Supra right now, Teagan. You have been with Supra for a pretty lengthy time, since April 2024. So that's over 8 months now. That's a pretty long time in Web3, and you've become well known in the ecosystem as a whole. There are a lot of dApps currently working with Supra. What are you looking for as an ecosystem lead? What are you looking for in founders and in projects who are interested in Supra as an L1?
That's a great question. I would say it really differs depending on what they're building, like between the niche, GameFi, DeFi, infra, etc. But one common thing to answer the question about founders and what I'm looking for, like specifically in founders, where if I review the project, or if I have a talk with them, I'm like, okay, these guys are really going to succeed. I think we should align heavily with so-and-so founders, where these type of people I see, not even through for example, the promotion of Supra, but just in general, no matter where they would go, they would succeed, is the type of people that can just, you can tell they're passionate about what they're building, and almost like they have that confidence that no matter where they go, this product is needed in the market and it will happen. And that's like one of the founder like traits that I mean, I'm not a VC, but I do kind of get really good impressions when I see. And when it comes to what type of projects I'm looking for on Supra, again, a lot of times because of the unique tech stack we're building out, if a project can utilize, for example, our vertical integration or aspects about Supra's tech stack and demonstrate that this is something that they see value in, and show me why their product needs it, this makes me bullish on them. And this is really what I'm looking for, because it not only shows that they've kind of done their DD, but it shows that our values are aligned. And that, of course, makes going forward, having a longer term partnership with XYZ, like dApp or a founder, it just makes that whole like next steps a lot easier, versus if they're just like, yeah, we need a blockchain, we need a grant, we need some type of support. If it's just surface level, yes, that totally still works, but it doesn't lead, I think, to the more longer term, like long lasting, meaningful relationships that we're trying to foster at Supra.
It must be kind of difficult though, because when you find a really good founder or project who fit those criteria, they are passionate, they're really good at what they do, they have a really good idea, they have a really good understanding of the technology and what they want, often have a good community. A lot of projects like that already have their eyes on an established L1, right? So at the moment, the L1 in fashion is, of course, Solana. A lot of founders will pick Ethereum or an Ethereum L2 like Polygon, because of the community. They are established. They have that Lindy effect whereby they know that there's already such a big groundswell of support. How do you attract those kind of projects who are really, really high quality to build on a brand new L1? It's obviously, I mean, from our side at Supra, we know we've built one of the best tech stack projects, best tech stack foundations in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly something for the future. But for a new founder who's looking at us, we're brand new to them. They may not know too much about us. How do you get them to consider us and to jump and take that risk?
So this is actually like the beautiful thing about Supra. I truly believe that great technology attracts talent, and so that's also why I really enjoy my current role as BD at Supra. There's a lot that I can talk about, and a lot of tools, in my repertoire that Supra technologically like provides me in these pitches that just sets us apart leagues and leagues from these other larger players in the ecosystem. So how do we attract them? Well, for one, it really comes down to how much the project resonates with what we are building. If they don't resonate at all, honestly speaking, do we want to attract them? As sometimes I would say like not necessarily, because if you're building out an ecosystem, for example, if you look at the ecosystem map for Base, I saw it tweeted out not too long ago. It's not huge, and for the most transacted layer 2, if you would think ecosystem dApps numbers and quantity directly translate to volume or users, that would be like an incorrect way to look at it. I would say. Let's take, for example, a DEX. If you have 10 different Uniswap V2 style AMM DEXs on your ecosystem, you're fragmenting the liquidity because each one requires liquidity pools. You're spreading it thinly across 10 different ones, or you have a few 2 to 3 winners and the rest kind of whittle away. And you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that every system, like I want to make sure every single project I bring to Supra becomes a massive success, that they get all the support that we can provide, that users find value and they find their specific niche of how they fit into like the DeFi or GameFi ecosystem within Supra. And if it expands too many people, there just won't be enough support to go around, enough liquidity to go around, etc. So that's why I think it's not just about being able to attract everyone, but being very strategic in who we align with and who we decide to really build together and mature together. Because I see like Supra, it's not just us, but it's all of the ecosystem partners building along with us. There's going to be no user-facing dApp or nothing for users to use without the passionate and big brain builders that are putting our technology to use for retail to actually get a feel of. And so, for example, I was recently talking to a Perp DEX, and they were just talking about wanting to build a fully on-chain order book system. But if you look at it, even with the tech stack of like, and how Cosmos app chains have historically outperformed a lot of like EVM style app chains or EVM layer 2s, it still did not, they still chose to go with a hybrid, on-chain, off-chain order book architecture. They weren't able to fully realize it. Like Hyperliquid was able to do a fully on-chain order book, but they had to do their own L1, their own HyperVM, etc. And so there's just so many, I think, in my mind, missing infrastructure components for developers to truly build next generation dApps that can provide Web 2-like UX and attract mainstream and get mainstream adoption, that Supra creates out-of-the-box solutions for them to not worry as much about infrastructure and just start building the things that they love and they want to build. So I think that is like the strongest value proposition, the strongest thing I can pitch. And from there, a lot of other stuff. It's about relationships. It's about you know, for example, some of the teams, I'm helping them with setting up their company entity with their whole roadmap, having weekly syncs. I'm throwing Twitter, everything I see on Twitter that I'm like, hey, this is going to be very cool for you to implement, or have you checked out this protocol? I'm just throwing it all at them. We're here to create a ecosystem together. We're here to grow together. And if you're looking to launch on Supra, like, you're eventually going to meet me, and we're gonna make the most of it.
I love that you talk about the large repertoire of tools that you have available when you're pitching to potential projects and inviting them to explore Supra. What are some of those tools? Give us an insight into what they are that you pull out in your pitches to these projects and founders.
Yeah, so none of my pitches are the same across calls. So usually, if you're asking about like my framework for pitches, it is, I ask a bunch of questions for the first 20 minutes of the call, figure out what exactly they care about, and then I just pitch them the one aspect of Supra I think correlates most to them. For a perp, it's native oracles. For a game, maybe it's VRF if they use VRF. Maybe it's high throughput, and I pitch as our consensus. If this perp DEX I was talking to, they talked about MEV a whole lot. I talked about how our consensus and how Supra is able to mitigate MEV. So it's usually I don't like to overwhelm people, and I just talk about one thing at a time. But if I were to list out all of the tools I had, it goes crazy. It's like the 500K TPS, it's vertical integration, it's the native oracles, VRF, automation, bridging, like the whole idea of intralayer. And then containers. Containers is honestly the thing I'm most excited about. And I can go on and on for, coming from like the app chain space, but containers is another huge one. And yeah, like those would be, I guess, the main tools that I have. MultiVM.
There's so many to list, as you mentioned. Earlier on, you spoke about Supra's unique tech stack. What is that? What makes Supra so unique in your mind that, there are so many different products available to builders, but what is it that makes Supra so unique as a tech stack for founders?
Yeah, so in my point of view, and this might be different if you ask like, the founder's point of view of what makes Supra the most unique. But to me, as kind of someone, even though 8 months is a long time, I do feel like I came into Supra as a long organization with a little bit fresher eyes. And it almost seems like, even though they technically, with the length of how long Supra has been building, probably came up with a lot of these concepts in a novel fashion. But now we are seeing other blockchains do vertical integration in some level. We are seeing stuff like proof of liquidity being done on Bearchain through their POEL in a different manner, different architecture. But we're seeing very similar stuff, and we're seeing them. The beautiful thing is we're seeing all of them succeed quite well. And now at Supra, it's almost like we gather together everything that works in the industry. Although from like a founder's point of view, they're probably like, no, we didn't see this first. We came up with all this, and this was the grand vision. But how it ended up is we pretty much gathered everything that works in the industry, put it all into one blockchain, and said, hey, as a developer, you don't have to pick and choose whether I want to launch on Bearchain and take advantage of this aspect, whether I want to launch on Arbitrum and take advantage of their whole Orbit tech stack, whether I want to launch on Fluent, take advantage of their blended VM, et cetera, et cetera. I can just launch on Supra, and I get advantages of all of that. So that's kind of the way Supra has tied everything together is what I think is most fascinating.
Now, I love the fact that you mentioned that containers is the product that you're most excited about. I think it's the product that so many people are most excited about. And it's real interesting because, of course, the likes of Cosmos has app chains, Avalanche has subnets, Polkadot has parachains, and there are a whole bunch of different ways of approaching security and building your app chain. And here, Supra has begun to roll out this really exciting concept in a similar vein that we're calling containers. Can you break down containers for those watching right now and why it excites you so much?
Yeah. So as a simple high-level overview, what containers allows you to do is retain all the benefits that a standard app chain with L2 gives you without the fragmented liquidity, fragmented user base, and large infra and bootstrapping costs that comes with it, which a lot of times is not as talked about, and developers don't realize how much goes into that. Bringing your own infrastructure, bringing your own oracles to that chain to allow developers to actually have stuff to build on and leverage, like indexers, for example. And so how we do that, to break it down, it's almost like vertically enshrining app chains within our tech stack. So to users, if they wanted to go between Supra L1 as the base L1 to your app chain on Supra, your container on Supra, it's one RPC, one wallet. Within the same VM, transactions are also atomic. So you're really getting away from the fragmented liquidity, fragmented user base. As you can see, like in that example, the user doesn't feel like they're interacting with another chain. But why do people want chains and their own app chains in the first place? Because they want to monetize their audience. They want to have governance control over their ecosystem, set up like a walled garden of sorts. And they want dedicated block space. It doesn't make sense for PayPal or some large bank like UBC to launch on Polygon. They have such a large user base. The minute they launch, their transactions will be 70, 80. It'll be more than the existing transactions of Polygon in general in total. So why would they bring all of that revenue, potential revenue, to Polygon instead of internalizing this? This is the whole idea and the main value prop for app chains, and a lot of people looking at deploying one. But there's just so many hidden costs and kind of barriers or user barriers, etc., that comes with it, that we are solving through the way we approach app chains and the way we're able to offer containers.
Do you think the user base of Supra, the community, which already is pretty significant, then of course there are a couple of projects very close to deployment on Supra's L1 that are bringing their community, so there's already a big foundational user base here. Do you think they will notice the benefits of containers, or is it something that is it's invisible to the user because it's just being leveraged so well by the projects?
I very much hope if it plays out, it's going to be invisible to the user, but they will inherit the benefits that containers create for Supra as an ecosystem. Why? Because then Supra transcends from becoming just another layer one blockchain to like an ecosystem of ecosystems. There's just going to be so much more trading volume, network effect, and overall boost to the GameFi. Where let's talk like DeFi, for example, to the DeFi ecosystem, because of different ecosystems stemming out from it. And let's take the example where a bank creates a container on Supra so that they can monetize their own transaction fees. They get to have a network of nodes and validators running this container and dedicated block space versus just one centralized sequencer and reaching a max throughput of maybe like 1000 TPS. So they get all of those benefits. But then if a user in this bank's container decides to make a trade, or there is lending aspects, associated with it. This could get routed through a lending market or a DEX on Supra's public L1. Remember, transactions are atomically composable between them, so users can enter or exit and re-enter a container seamlessly with very, very little latency and without even realizing it. So in a lot of ways, transactions in these containers not only benefits, well, it will also bleed into and benefit our public layer one and the dApps building on there.
Do you think that containers has the potential to end L2s?
That's a tricky question. I would say there is about 90% of the use cases for why people are building L2s that gets captured by containers.
Wow.
And then there's 10% outliers that they cannot build what they wanted to build with the containers architecture. So I'll kind of make like an example here. With containers, at least at the current moment, you cannot make changes to the DA that you're settling on because it's not modular. It's more of like a monolithic app chain design, where like a shard. So you can't make changes to the DA. You can't decide to run consensus somewhere else. If you wanted to do something like Unichain, where you're utilizing flashbots and creating your own like block runtimes and execution methodology, that wouldn't be possible. Granted, you wouldn't really need it with containers because of the way Supra solves MEV in and of itself. But yeah, there are specific use cases where someone's built an L2 and they have very, very specific reasons and like technical architecture changes that they made around this L2. And in those cases, in those few cases, I would say, yeah, that they can't do that with a container, and it makes more sense for them to do an L2. But I think the mass majority of L2s right now, they're there for two reasons. They want to monetize their user base and for the valuation. Because obviously, if you pitch to VCs, hey, I'm a layer 2, layer 3, you're not going to market with the valuation comp of a DEX or a Perp. You're going to market with the valuation comp of a layer 2, layer 3. And that also brings your token more utility if you use it as the gas token. So we can provide you both of those benefits with the container and more. And that's why I would say like most of these L2s out there, I think we would claim a large market share.
Now let's talk a bit about the projects coming to Supra. Obviously, you won't want to show favoritism here, or I understand the various projects already that I've spoken to here on the Super dApp Builders series. We don't want some of them to feel left out, but just for the sake of the audience right now, what are some of the really exciting projects that have you most anticipating their launch on Supra?
I don't want to give out too much, details about where front run them. So this might be a tricky question. Let me think about how to like phrase this. So when it comes to DeFi primitives, I believe that what we're cooking with in the DeFi ecosystem on Supra is going to be a game changer, and I'll tell you why. So instead of mentioning like specific projects, I'll tell you why. Like as an ecosystem, I think it's going to be very exciting. The way I see a lot of Ethereum-based communities where dApps coming to market is more of a competition style. A lot of times it's if you're a DEX, you're out there to compete with other DEXs. If you're a lending market, you're competing with others. There's a lot of composability. There's a lot of working together, but it's not as strong, and there's not as much of like a dApp focused like builder environment. It's more infra focused, and everyone like building out modularly and horizontally scaling. Whereas Solana, it's like we want to vertically scale all the dApps. I think there's more of a tight knit community there. People are more willing to build primitives on top of each other And for example, I'm a big fan of like the Jupiter Perps JLP token, um, and how that is being utilized, for example, in Camino to build strategies so that you have more of a diversified exposure to different assets and being able to leverage long on them via a lending market. So I think those type of ideas are very cool. And what we're cooking up at Supra is basically getting DEXs to have more composability, collaboration between each others, setting up strategies and go-to-market strategies, and setting up the general DeFi ecosystem and DeFi primitives being built on top of these DEXs, like yield aggregators, leverage looping strategies, everything from the assets we're seeding on Supra, like the ETH derivatives, Bitcoin derivatives, what type of assets we're pushing on Supra, all to have meaning. Everything is, there for a reason. If we seed liquidity for Ether ETH, there's going to be a reason. And Mantle did this very well. Mantle created their own, liquid staking product with METH, and we saw how well baking these type of strategies and having conscious ecosystem approaches to seeding assets and getting everyone involved in the DeFi ecosystem to participate and utilize this asset, how well that turns out. And so I'm taking like a very similar approach at Supra. And in that sense, by going to developers and saying, hey, I see you're building out this thing. This is the type of products we have at Supra. How do you think you could better integrate with this? We're pitching ideas like, what do you think about shifting XYZ roadmap to allow for this type of asset into your pools, do this type of strategies with this asset, etc. And I've actually got very, very interesting conversations sparked from these, and I think developers also in the ecosystem, when you start to position and ask them these questions, like if you were to think about building out a DeFi ecosystem on Supra, how would you go about doing it? They can give you value and they can give you great insights.
What would you say to projects who are looking at where to go next or where to build next? Maybe they have considered Supra, they've seen the Supra's containers offering. What would you tell projects right now who are still on the edge and not quite there, or they've just heard about Supra and you would want to attract them? What would your message be?
Yeah, so it depends what stage you are. If you're starting out, I would say we have all the tools to really help you go from zero to like a successful project. If you're serious, so we're helping out with the audits, getting your code audited. We're helping out with like the entity creation. If you don't have that support, all of these stuff, the go to market, the marketing, we have like the upcoming hackathon at IBW and our online hackathon. So I definitely recommend applying through there. And I think Supra provides a great ecosystem for you to start out. And the way we're building out our online hackathon tracks, there'll also be info of what sort of protocols, what sort of dApps do we really need in our ecosystem? And if you see these bounties and you're like, hey, I can build that out, I definitely think that would be like a great route to enter our ecosystem. The other route is like if you have an existing product where you're looking to potentially launch on Supra, the best way, honestly, is just going through the website, filling out a form, or reaching out. You could also reach out directly to me or someone else on the BD team. And then we do have our own like ecosystem fund that we are utilizing to help support and get projects, make it make sense for projects to deploy and choose Supra as one of the chains.
Yeah, of course. And that's what this series is all about. It's really highlighting the Super dApp Showdown as well, because that's a big campaign that is doing exactly what you're talking about, which is attracting builders to apply for that ecosystem fund. There's $100 million ecosystem fund, which we have made available for projects that are looking to build and roll out their dApp. And we're saying, come and roll it out on Supra. Teagan, man, this has been such a great chat. We could go on for ages here, but I know you got places to be. It's a big week, big month for us here at Supra, and we need to get going. But in closing, any final comments that you'd like to make to the Supra community watching right now?
Definitely, yeah. If you look at Supra, from a tech stack perspective, and you see synergies about like, or get ideas of, hey, this really empowers me to build XYZ, I would strongly recommend you to come on board, to reach out, even if it's just to start off with, and you're at the ideation phase. We have the tools. We have the Super dApp competition that you can apply to. You can always reach out to me or someone from the BD team. And we're always happy to talk with passionate builders. A lot of the ecosystem dApps right now on Supra started off with just ideas, start off with like individual, like passionate developers in the space that have maybe built out successful products in the past, or are trying to launch their business for the first time, but had a great idea, came to me, and we're really making this, this dream of reality. It's kind of surreal to see everything come together, and see the ecosystem dApps and partners we've been talking to for months take what was once an idea and now actually deploying the testnet. It's very, very exciting, and I wish to share this with more people.
Yeah, it really is exciting. This is what it's all about, isn't it, in the industry? So this has been so great. Teagan, thank you. Where can people find you on X? Are you on Instagram? And what are your various social media handles?
Yeah, so you can find me on X at OX Teagan, Teagan. OX as in like the wallet, shorthand. And then on Telegram as well, just backwards Teagan 0x. And yeah, those are the main social media platforms that I use.
You must have got that X handle pretty early. 0x Teagan, that's pretty rare to have that exact handle.
Yeah. I guess I don't know when I created it, but I've been a degen on X, just lurking and surfing around for a while.
Well, when you don't know when you created, it was a very long time ago. Teagan Buckley, everyone, the ecosystem lead of Supra. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with us. And we will chat to you very soon. Take it easy, man.
It was a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
All right, there we go. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to another edition of the Super dApp Builders series. What a great chat with Teagan Buckley, the ecosystem lead here at Supra. Remember, you can apply to the Super dApp Showdown. Just head on over to supra.com/showdown, fill in your details, and one of our team will get in touch with you to talk further. Make sure that you're following us on X, Supra_labs. Check out our website. Make sure you're signed up to our newsletter. And of course, look out for all the content coming up right here on YouTube with future Super dApp Builders episodes. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, bye-bye.